What's going on, guys? This is Henry Kaminski from the Passionpreneur Inner Circle. This is episode number 34 of the video podcast. I have an awesome guest today, straight out of Jersey, my homeland. Todd Genatasio. Met this rock star on Facebook, has an awesome company called Trensic Media, and we literally hit it off from the get-go. Passionpreneur member as well. Todd, welcome to the show. Thank you for being part of it today. And
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Let's talk about your superpower. But first and foremost, for those that do not know who TG is, let the folks know a little bit about yourself and how you got started with Trensic and what you actually do for your clients.
Sure. So my name's Todd Genatasio, Trensic Media, and we are an inbound marketing agency focused on content marketing. So we help customers get found online where their customers are looking. And I got started, I've been doing interactive web communications for like 12 years. When you hit that decade mark, it's like weird, and been doing it for like 12 years. Started my company about 6 years ago because, I was in corporate and I really wanted to work with businesses where I could have a more of a major impact on people's lives instead of working in a cubicle and, putting out work into the darkness. So we got started building websites, started helping our customers get found and creating content for them and helping them build their funnels, build their pipeline, drive sales, all that good stuff. So now it's a pleasure to get to work with small businesses that are looking to increase their customer base and that we actually get to do work that we see an impact on.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So let's talk content for a second.
Yep.
And I stress this a lot, especially being the brander and the digital marketer and designer that I am. If you're not putting yourself out there, how the hell do you expect to be found? So
Yep.
let's talk about the basics a little bit. And man, I just had lunch with you last week, and man, we could have sat there for another 7 hours.
We could have still been sitting there.
We still could have been sitting there, right? So let's talk about the foundation. Let's talk about the basics for a second.
Yep. So, the idea being the buyer journey and the buying process for consumers and business people has changed, right? Over the last 10 years with the internet and all that stuff. This is not breaking news. People are going to Google and they're searching for stuff and they're doing their own research. Like, people don't walk in blind to a store and don't know what they're going to buy yet. They look up on their phone, they look up on their computer, and they're learning about all this stuff before they go shopping or before they have to make a business decision. So back in the day, someone needed to buy a car, they would go to the dealership and they would have to talk to a sales guy to learn about the cars and all that kind of stuff other than what they saw in a 30-second commercial. But nowadays, people, the information is in their hands, so they're controlling the process of what they want to buy, when they want to buy it, and how they want to buy it. So, I don't have a Tesla, so I can't speak to it, but I don't even think they have dealerships, right? Teslas it's an online business, I think, in most states. So people are even buying cars that way now. And what we help people do is match that new buying process so that when someone goes online, like you said, if you're not putting yourself out there, how do you expect to get found? And we help people create those digital assets so that they do get found when people are looking.
That's awesome. I want to dive into some just straight nugget, because
Yep.
you gave me some great stuff last week at lunch that I want to share with the audience. So first and foremost, I think one of the biggest problems I see with people or entrepreneurs that are trying to get their name out there, trying to get their business seen and heard is, what the hell type of content do I put out there? And you suggested a awesome resource called answerthepublic.com. So
Yep.
talk to us about answerthepublic.com and how that can help you generate content.
Yeah. So the best way to think about it, and we could get into the tool in a second, but a lot of people struggle, like you said, right off the bat, like, what the hell is content? What should I be, what do I even do? And when you talk to people about, okay, well, you need to have a blog on your website, they freak out and they're like, I'm not a blogger. People don't want to hear what I have to say, blah, blah, blah. But if we have a client where I send an email with a question in it, They'll answer me back in less than a half hour with 500 words, perfect blog post. But to them, all they did was answer a client's question. So taking that approach, using this tool, answerthepublic.com, is what makes it easy. What it does is, I use it. I love it. You should also check it out if you're watching. I don't have any kind of affiliation with them whatsoever, but you put in a keyword or a phrase and it spits out like every version of questions that people have around that particular phrase. So anything that starts with who or what or why or how. So you can rely on your own conversations you have with customers to come up with questions, or you can go and plug in one of your services into answerthepublic.com and it's going to spit out a whole list of data. And that becomes a checklist for you. Every day you sit down, you pull one of those questions, and you just answer it as if someone called you up and asked you the question or shot you an email and asked you the question. So if you want to be publishing your content on videos and Facebook Live, flip on the camera and answer that question in a couple minutes, that becomes your video content. If you're more of a typing person or writer, just write it out as if you're writing an email and publish that either, on your blog and then share the link on social, or write it out directly on social.
Yeah. One of the biggest things that you said to me last week also was getting more burn out of the content, meaning getting more reach out of the content that you're creating. And you mentioned something really valuable here as well. If you're not a writer, don't even think that you're going to become this awesome writer right out of the gate, right? If you suck at video, don't do video.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you have a passion for it, if you're eager to learn and you're gung ho about it, do it. Go all in on it.
Yep.
But you mentioned like getting more reach out of the content that you produce, and I was so hesitant because I used to blog back in the day, right? And it was like a chore. Like it would take me an hour to get one blog out, between finding the right images, then writing it, and then setting up all the links and stuff. Like I wanted to shoot myself, right? But then you showed me a way to do it so easy. You don't have to go through the step by step, but one of the things that Todd told me to do was, he was like, listen, you do your videos every day. You do your emails every day. You should take that same content and literally copy and paste it into a blog and start publishing blogs, because what does that do? It allows the search engines now to give you more burn out of that content and have you ranking better. And he said, dude, you're doing this every day. That's 365 pieces of content a year that you can be building. And so I don't want to go too deep into that, because that could be like a whole training. Right? But let's talk about the actual topic of today's conversation, which is how to get found online where your customers are looking. Because if you're fishing in the wrong pond, Todd,
that's exactly right.
It turns into wasted time, wasted energy. Wasted money.
Yeah. So everything we do when we sit down with new clients, any kind of advice I always give is knowing your customers, right? Now, a lot of times you hear, especially in the social media marketing world, like, oh, Snapchat is what's up and coming. Everybody's got to be on Snapchat, or Instagram stories are the new thing. So you got to be publishing Instagram stories. Like, well, if you're selling to an audience of 45-year-old men, Snapchat doesn't matter at all. So if you were to take like the general industry advice and you're like, okay, we got to dive into Snapchat, let's do it, and you invest all this time and energy into that, you're not going to reach anybody who actually matters.
No.
So everything you want to do starts with who your customer is and knowing where they are. So starting off with, what kind of websites are they visiting? Where do they get their news from? Where do they get their information? What kind of Facebook pages do they like? Or if they're on Facebook a lot, or is it, if it's targeting, a women demographic, who are they following on Pinterest, or what kind of, Etsy shops are they reviewing, and all that kind of stuff. So knowing your customer base is where it all starts. And that's kind of how you learn and figure out where they are. And if you could just start, do this research on Google by searching for your own products and services, and see, not to look for competitors' product pages, but to look for competitors or information competitors, I'll say, that are publishing articles around those same topics. And then you can see, what people are talking about, what's getting shared a lot, where is it getting shared. And an easy way to do that is finding websites that are publishing articles, copy the link, and go to buzzsumo.com, and you paste in the website. And even without creating an account, you get like the top 10 results, I think it is, something like that. And it'll show you across the board, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Pinterest, there might be one more, and then a total share amount. So you can see the content that is in your same industry, where that's getting shared and what kind of content is getting shared a lot. So you know where to start with creating stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And that's, these little tools, right, are so important to have in your arsenal to help you cut back on all the guesswork, right?
Exactly.
And that's where I think a lot of us get choked up, get tripped up, and we're like, well, I'm out. Like this is getting to be too much of a pain in the ass. Like enough's enough. Like I'm going to go find something else to do. Like it literally comes down to that.
And actually, but while you're saying that, I want to jump back. So when we were talking about your content, you mentioned like, you're producing every day, 365 things a year. You have a mountain of assets that you should be building. Let's not intimidate people who haven't started yet, right? If you haven't started, you don't need to be doing this every day. You can start off doing this once a week. Make a list of 10 things and commit yourself for 10 weeks to do one thing a week. And that's how you can get started. So Henry is a beast with this stuff, but he's been doing it for a while. So, don't compare your beginning to someone else's middle, right? Don't think like, oh man, I got to do this every single day. Just make a list of 10 things you want to do that you want to talk about. And for 10 weeks, do it once a week.
Yeah. Well, better yet, some of the times, like I get caught up too. Like some of the times I want to talk about something and it's something that I want to talk about, but not necessarily what my audience gives a shit about, quite frankly. Right.
Yep.
So it's like using those resources like Answer the Public, BuzzSumo, see what kind of buzz is going on out there, and jumping into that conversation and putting your spin on it, putting your perspective on it, and having a conversation with your audience versus talking at them.
That's right. I think today's marketing is a dialogue. It's not a monologue. And people need to make that shift in their mentality where you got to be talking with your customers. You're not speaking to them.
Yeah, 100%. When people feel engaged, when people feel like they're being listened to, the magic happens, right? It feels like they're part of something. They and they generally want to become more a part of that, whatever that is. And so one of the biggest things that one of my coaches said to me back in the day was, dude, and some of you guys heard me say this already, but dude, you're a great designer. But you're not nobody knows who you are. You're hiding behind that great service of yours, that pretty design. Right. Your personality is the size of California. Like, get out there. Get out there. And as I tell you, the minute I started to do that and not be vanilla, we were talking about this in a previous podcast interview. Like, I'm not trying to be vanilla here, but getting out there and being my own person, having my own thoughts, having my own values, and not really being afraid of what other people may think. People may look at me every day and be like, this fucking guy again, excuse my language. like this guy's a real pain in the ass. Like, if I
– But good marketing.
Exactly.
Good marketing is going to attract the right people and it's going to repel the wrong people, and that's okay. And once people understand that, it's okay to repel people who are not going to be ideal for your business anyway, then you can really get into your personality. And an easy way to do that, even if people are like, oh, well, I'm not from Jersey, so I don't have that kind of personality like these two characters do, right? If you think it's something that doesn't come natural, when you're passionate about what you do, right, it comes out naturally. So just let yourself geek out about that stuff. And back to the point too about not being vanilla, not blending in. A lot of times people also hesitate getting started because they think, okay, well, I know there's dozens of other people that are talking about this stuff already. Why should I do this? And one, it's because you have a different personality than everyone else. You're unique and you want to get out, and people will want to do business with you for that. But the other thing is, you're in an echo chamber of your industry, right? Like you and I hear all this marketing jazz all day long because we're students of the game.
Mm-hmm.
When you're a student of the game, you hear all this. If you're a customer shopping for marketing services or branding and brand identity, those people are not hearing that stuff all day long. So to us, there's a lot of people talking about it because we're listening for it. But if you're not looking for that on a day-to-day basis, like if you own a car dealership or you're a mechanic or something, like you're not hearing brand identity content all the time. You never hear it. So it's about, and this ties into, it's about who they find when they go looking. And when you're putting yourself out there, you become the one they find. They might end up, even if they're doing a lot of research, finding a handful of people that are connecting with them or resonating with them, but they're not here, they're not oversaturated the same way that you are in your industry, no matter what industry it is.
That's right. And I think that's where we get too close to the business, right? And that's sort of like the curse of knowledge that people talk about, right? And it's funny you bring that up. So I want to go a layer further deep on this, because we talked about this again last week, which I thought was super powerful. So let me just get my train of thought back again.
All right.
We were talking, so content creation and some of the stuff. So you had mentioned to me, like, Henry, your potential clients aren't out there Googling brand identity.
Right.
They're not out there typing brand messaging, right?
Right.
They have their own language, their own vocabulary that's comfortable to them, right? So one of the biggest mistakes, I think, listen, I raised my hand, that I was making.
Me too.
Yeah, that I was making in the past, where I was like, I was using the techno babble, if you will,
right,
with my marketing, and some of it was going right over my clients or my audience's heads.
Right.
So we did a fun little, what did we do in your office? I was like, we got to break this down into a third grade vocabulary or third grade messaging, right?
Right.
And I said, what would be brand identity to you?
Right.
And you kind of gave me an answer back. And I said, well, the way I would explain it to my third grader would be, you have friends, don't you? Yes, I do. Dad, uncle, friend, whatever, right? Okay, well, do you care about what your friends think of you? Well, yeah, I sure I do. Well, that's brand identity. It's what your friends think of you. And when you break it down, in that simplistic format, people are like, well, crap, it's important that I have a reputation of some sort.
Right. Yep.
Right.
That's exactly right.
It's better to have a bad reputation than no reputation, in my opinion. And so I want to talk about that for a second. So we hit a lot just now, so I want the audience to understand that you got to step outside of your world for a second and start to think, what's my audience Googling? What, and again, there's those softwares out there that we just talked about, like BuzzSumo and Answer the Public, where it's going to give you the freaking answers. You just got to go and do it, right?
Yeah.
And then craft messaging that is on their level.
Exactly. And if you're someone who's already in business, this is a good little cheat too, is talk to your clients and say, how do you describe to your friends and colleagues what it is we do together? Because that will tell you how people are talking about it outside of whatever it is that you do.
Yeah.
Like if you need, you go to a mechanic, this is a very, technical versus non-technical person where, I drive a car, but if something breaks down and I bring it in and that guy comes out and he gives me a sheet and he goes, okay, you got this, and this, and it's going to be, this much money to fix. And I'm like, all right, well, I got to drive out of here. So fix whatever you got to do. I'm not going to go to my friends and really give a good explanation of, hey, I went over to Willie the mechanic and he, I can't even make up words about mechanics of a car. I'm so poor about it. But when people come to me and they're like, oh man, my check engine light came on or my car is making funny noises, the first thing I say is, you got to go to Willie the mechanic. So knowing how your customers are talking, the easiest way to find out is, ask your customers, how would you describe what it is that we do together?
That's it. Let them give you the answers.
Yeah.
Because again, we're all trying to do so much.
Right.
We complicate things.
Exactly. It can be so easy. I mean, how hard is it to send an email out to your customers, or even just next time you are on the phone or in person with them, just say to them, hey, by the way, do you mind if I just ask you something? How do you describe it, what we do as a company? How hard is that? It's easy. Answerthepublic.com. We don't have it up in front of us to show people, but it's super simple. You literally just type in brand identity and hit enter, and it gives you a list of stuff. BuzzSumo, same thing. You type in a word or phrase or a link to a website and hit enter, and it gives you the top 10 shared pieces of content on the internet. These aren't overcomplicated tools. So yeah, it's easy to fall down the rabbit hole on all these things, but if you just keep it simple and remind yourself to keep it simple, at least when you're getting started, that's the easiest way to get those quick wins and build the momentum it takes to do this in the long haul.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's one of the biggest things we talked about again last week was building your email list and really getting the folks off of social media and into your world.
Right.
And that's because if Facebook goes away tomorrow, which I doubt, Instagram and all those other, but they're constantly changing algorithms. They're constantly making, these crazy changes.
Here's the thing. Like you and I both leverage our personal profiles because we're the founders of our companies and we have boutique businesses, right? That's not the case for every business and every brand. Most of them use Facebook pages to put out their content. So what I used to tell people a couple of years ago was the same thing you just said. Like Facebook could go away or they could change the rules, and they did change the rules. And now if you have a Facebook business page and you publish stuff on there, nobody sees it. I hate to tell you if this is the first time you're hearing it, but it shows between like 1% and 10% at best. So if you have 1,000 fans, like maybe 100 will get it loaded into their news feed, and that doesn't even mean they're reading it. So, you know what I mean? It's knowing that you got to create the right stuff for people that's going to engage them. And then, like you said, turning this, and this is what a big part of our conversation last week is, turning it into assets for your business, where if you publish a Facebook video, or if you publish a Facebook post, images, whatever it is, you publish it today on May, whatever it is, 29th or 30th today, maybe it floats around for a week, but then it's gone. It's in the ether, and nobody really finds that again. Nobody uses, Facebook's not a search engine for people, and even if it was, it's so oversaturated, people wouldn't find stuff that was that long ago. And so it's making those content assets something for your business in the long term. And that's where a blog can come into play, where now when you publish something onto Facebook, you can take that video, and it's literally, I showed you, takes 2 seconds. You can copy and paste a little Facebook share button thing they give you, and you paste that onto your blog. And now that video lives on your blog, which becomes something that's findable via Google search. So now if you're pumping out stuff, and this goes to you're building a mountain of stuff with 365 pieces a year, or if you're someone who does it once a week, that's still 50 pieces of content every year that you could be building in your library. Yeah. And once it's in your library, that's where Google will find it and index it, and you'll start showing up when people search on Google. But what it also does is it gives you a library of evergreen content. If you're not doing stuff that's timely, like if you're like, hey, this Memorial Day was this weekend and blah, 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 blah. But if you just speak to those questions and answers that your customers are having, those are things, once they're on your blog, you can reshare them. So if every Monday you go live on Facebook with a video and you talk about a new topic, but then you put that into your evergreen library, every Monday you're creating a new piece of content. And then throughout the week, you can rotate those evergreen pieces so people still see them.
Yeah.
And depending on what kind of business you have, Pinterest is a huge factor. And one of our clients who does like a lot of like design stuff for nurseries and bridal showers and stuff, I guess same thing goes for Facebook, but Pinterest is a huge cycle where they show up at the top of Google for certain keywords that they've blogged about. Someone finds that and they pin it. Well, it doesn't matter if that blog post you wrote is 5 years old, that person just pinned it today. And now all their friends see it again, and their friends start repinning it, and it becomes a just tornado of traffic back to your website. And then maybe it dies down again, but then again, someone finds it on Google and pins it because that's what their audience does, and it's another cycle again. So creating those assets that can live forever and get found and shared, that's where a blog comes in. And that's why getting stuff from Facebook into your blog becomes such a big deal. And like you said, building your email list is important because Facebook changes their algorithm again for some reason, or, you know, in the next 2 years, those Facebook ad bids are going to go way up, just like Google AdWords did 10 years ago. And, you know, reaching your audience gets harder and harder. So moving that content, even if you publish it every Monday on Facebook Live, putting that onto your blog so it becomes findable by Google over time, and it becomes part of your asset library that you can continuously share without having to make new content every day. And then that's something that can go out to your email list. And then, you know, I'll tease a future episode where you can have somebody talk about this, but that content also becomes the drip content in the email sequence. So someone comes to your website, you capture their email with an ebook. Now you have a library of blog posts that they can get emails from and link to.
The job becomes much, much easier as you continue to grow and build your assets. You know, it's like, you can build a house as big as you want to build it. You know, it's how big do you want it, right? And I tell people that all the time. Like, now it's the selling process for me is gotten so much easier over the past few years, is because when I first tried to sell back in the day, I was as good as my last project, right? And I didn't really showcase it. It was just, that was my last project, right? But now I have hundreds. And listen, you have to start somewhere. I remember when I started my YouTube channel last year, and I started with video 1. And I was like,
hey, everybody starts with video 1.
Everyone starts with video 1, and video 1 is going to suck. All right, I'm going to tell you that right off the bat. You know, it's pumping through it, doing it more often, practicing your craft, mastering it. And then when people are inquiring about it, now you have an arsenal of content to give them or show them or have them digest. And now it's on them. It's you either connect with this or you don't. And that's the only way you're going to build trust, likability, credibility, and people are really going to know who you are. And again, there's so many different levels of this, and Todd, we'll have you back. We'll have you back on the show again to go a little bit deeper. But if there's anything that you want the audience to take away from this conversation, what's the one big thing?
It's getting started, and let's make it easy. Sit down and make a list 10 things, the most common questions that you get from your customers. And if you have trouble coming up with those 10 things, we already gave you 3 ways to find out. Go to answerthepublic.com, go to buzzsumo.com, or ask your existing customers how they talk about you. Make a list of 10 questions and pick one day a week for the next 10 weeks that you're going to sit down. If you're a video person, make a video. If you're more of a writer, write it out. Pretend you're writing an email to someone who asked you that question and publish it. Publish it. If you don't have a blog on your website, publish it on Facebook and just keep it in a Google Doc so that when you get a blog set up, you can put it back in there. But make a list of 10 questions, designate 1 hour, 2 hours tops for the next 10 weeks, and get that stuff created and published. And you'll start getting some feedback, and you'll know how to make it better, and you'll know how to answer different questions. There will be follow-up questions, but you got to start somewhere. Everybody starts with video number 1, like you said. So start with video number 1, post number 1, whatever it is. That's how you can get started today.
That's it. Todd, my man, thank you so much for
being having me.
Yeah, for being part of the show. Again, valuable insight here. Guys, this is episode number 34. Jesus. Of the Passionpreneur video podcast. You know, if you want to check out more of these episodes, there's a link here, passionpreneur.net/grow your business. It's a great community, great program to get involved in. I invite you to go check it out. I'll give you a quick
testimonial because I'm in the Passionpreneur group. I 100% recommend it. If you're looking to get around people that want to help you level up, like Henry has done with me, and hopefully I'm trying to help him do himself too. You know, we talk about a dialogue. There's major dialogue going on in there with a lot of great people. So I attest to it.
It's a team sport in this program. You know, all of us are all trying to get to where we want to be together. And let me tell you something, it's a lot easier to do it with a pack than trying to do it alone, guys. So anyway, 100%. Todd, Appreciate that shout out.
Yeah.
Appreciate all that you do. And we'll catch you guys on the next episode. Peace out, guys.